The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for taking time out to join us today. My name is Adrienne Montgomery. I'm with ERP VAR, and I'm so pleased to be joined by Danielle Kerner, John Nicholson, and Art Olson. Danielle's going to kick off the webinar today from Acumatica. I just wanted to share a couple of housekeeping notes prior to getting started here. If you note on your webinar pane, you'll see that there is a question mark button. If you should have any questions throughout the presentation, we just ask that you click on that question mark button and a dialog box will open up where you can go ahead and key in your question. And we'll reserve the announcing of those questions until the end of the webinar. And once again, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to join us. We know your time's hard to come by, and we really appreciate you spending it with us. And Danielle, I'll go ahead and let you get started.
Okay, great. Well, thanks, Adrienne. I appreciate it. As Adrienne mentioned, I'm Danielle Kerner. I am with Acumatica, and I'm going to spend a couple of minutes, a few slides going through an introduction to Acumatica and our solution as a key to digital transformation. Then I'm going to turn it over to John Nicholson, who's going to do an intro to Acumatica via demonstration, talk about Acumatica manufacturing and production scheduling. And then with what time we have left, we'd love to take some questions. So thank you again, everybody, for your time today. Really appreciate you joining us and hope to make the most of it. So a little bit on what the Acumatica demo is going to cover. Once we get to that, we're going to talk about navigation and overview, production-specific dashboards and KPIs, engineering change request approvals, real-time costing and financial reporting. So very exciting stuff. This is really an interesting and informative demonstration that we're going to go into in, again, just a few slides. But for those of you who are new to Acumatica, we'd just like to give you a bit of an introduction to who we are, how we fit in the marketplace, what makes us unique. And so what we're looking at here is just kind of the evolution of companies, you know, within the last decade or two, having gone from an analog business to modern technology. And then where we fit in is at the far right, where we're helping with this digital transformation of your business. And, you know, we've talked about this in somewhat abstract terms until about a year ago when COVID hit. And all of a sudden it became, you know, this very, you know, real thing to everybody, where understanding how access to the software that runs your business from anywhere on any device, how imperative that was to running your business. You know, we wouldn't have wished that on anybody, but it did kind of drive home the point that it's not enough to be on modern technology any longer. It's not enough to have software applications that run various parts of your business that are on a server in your office. It's not enough to have those systems working in silos and that data sort of disparate, nothing really coordinated and talking together. It all has to be harmonized and synchronized, accessible and productive. It has to give you the answers that you're looking for to help run your business more efficiently. So Acumatica really focuses on those aspects, always has. Again, it's just one of those things that, you know, we were very grateful for the opportunity to support our customers and, you know, get the feedback that we received last year unsolicited from those who were able to turn their computers off at the office one day and go home and operate their business as though nothing had happened the next. So in addition to helping companies achieve this sort of digital transformation, another area that we really focus on is usability. We understand that if the software isn't something that people feel is usable, then it doesn't get used, in fact. And it's an opportunity for us in our industry. It's an area that is neglected in some ways, sometimes sorely. You know, usability is secondary, if that. While it's important that we meet your basic business needs with ERP functionality, it has to be usable. So while we like to talk about that, we also like to talk about the awards that we received and have received that underscore that point. And so the Gartner and the G2 crowd are both important industry standards for those types of benchmarks. And then best manufacturing solution from Cody Awards and PC magazine as well. So it's important that we keep our thumb on, we think we're good at this. What does everybody else think? And then this constant evolution of the application. It's a part of what I love about the industry that we're in is it is always evolving. There's always something new, and so we try to keep up with that in everything that we do with sort of cutting edge, if not bleeding edge technology advancements. But again, there are basic blocking and tackling that we know we have to achieve in all of these areas, and these are really key to making our application usable. And we have 2 major releases a year. This is highlighting some of the updates that we made in the second release of 2020. And so with that, I'm going to turn things over to John for the demonstration of the application. I'll hang around so that if there are any questions at the end specific to Acumatica, I'll be happy to take those.
Okay, so just real quick here, we're focused today on manufacturing, and my name's John Nicholson, and I'm a partner and principal in Stratotech Partners. With me today is Art Olson, and my background is I am a CPA. I spent a lot of time in ERP implementations for mid-sized companies, doing a lot of financial roles. Art has also got a deep background in finance, but he's also concentrated in, production management and some of those specialties in mid-sized manufacturers, and spent quite a career in that area. What we want to do today is just, introduce you to Acumatica, but more specifically do a deep dive on optimization or ways to take Acumatica and, focus on things that will help a mid-sized manufacturer. And oftentimes with systems today, optimization is kind of an ongoing task. So that's why we want to focus a little bit on this. I'm going to do 2 of the list here. I'm going to take a look at some of the financial reporting and real-time capabilities there, as well as focus on some of the production information that you'll see in dashboards and some of the KPIs. Ultimately, I also want to do a fairly, extensive demonstration on the mobile platform, because this is, again, a way a lot of mid-sized manufacturers, I think, can optimize some of the systems that they're using. The last 4 items, I'm going to spend some time with, or Art will take over, and he'll spend some time, I should say, working through kind of examples how you might, do some improvement of production scheduling or collaboration with the supply chain, and things like, work center utilization, which today oftentimes means using, robots or assisted worker scenarios like cobots, and then ultimately some visibility around outside processing. So those are just some things that we wanted to give you a little flavor for when you're using Acumatica. And bear with me here, I'm just changing the slide. And so what we'll do here is I'll go ahead and focus on an Acumatica presentation, and I'm just bringing up our Acumatica system here. So we'll go ahead and log into Acumatica for a demonstration environment, so you can take a look at it. And we'll focus on a couple of things here. As you load Acumatica, one of the things I wanted to do is just give an overview of the interface, so what you're seeing in the application. Specifically, as we look across the top of the screen, I'm over in the far right side here. This is a banner toolbar where we have certain capabilities, and you'll see our, your name effectively when you log in. You're going to notice that you have a help capability where you can access, very specific procedure help, concept help, certainly depending on the screens you're at. We have a business calendar, and we have an organizational structure. And this is kind of some of the things as you log in your role in the organization, you may have access to different branches, divisions, that kind of thing. Also want to just point out briefly, and we'll come back and look at a little bit here, really key across that banner to Acumatica is the universal search. really applications, and I want to say users today, are really keyed around searching for things. And so applications have to be built to search, and Acumatica really puts that kind of in the front and center here of their toolbar. And then ultimately on the left side here, we're looking at workspaces. And workspaces will give us an ability to kind of organize tasks around a given role. And we'll look at some of these workspaces. For example, we might take a look at the production orders workspace. And as we highlight that area, you'll notice that there are transactions, or groupings, I should say. The first grouping is called transactions. And these groupings of tasks are organized in ways that you might use the system. So you might be interested in an inquiry. The inquiries are grouped in a category section over there as well. If you take a look at bill of materials, you'll see similar organizations, oftentimes with menus, for instance, or workspaces. You might have a collapsed or quick menu, or you might have a full menu. So those are a couple of things when you're just looking at the interface here to take a look at. But ultimately, if we go back, you'll notice that the majority of the page as you log into Acumatica is dedicated to reporting in the form of a dashboard. And dashboards are something that organizations will utilize for different roles. This particular dashboard is a default. As I log into the system, I'm looking at a customer view, and I can certainly filter that view more specifically. But oftentimes what we'll find is we'll make use of these dashboards given the role in the organization. One of the things I oftentimes do is use the favorites, and I might have several roles in the organization, and one of those is more oriented around manufacturing key performance indicators, and so I might want to bring up the manufacturing dashboard. And again, we have about 5 or 6 specific manufacturing dashboards. So whether you're focused on engineering or production management, this is kind of an overall aggregation of reporting. And some of the things that Art's going to do with optimization will be to drill into some of these key items and take a look at them, and specifically what they represent in terms of really being the end result of certain processes. One of the things I just wanted to identify here is as you look at these components to a dashboard, and I'm down in the bottom right corner, these are going to let you know certain information, and then you have the ability to take action on those or drill into that information. So as an example, we can take a look at late purchase orders, and at this point we'll be able to specifically drill into what is known as a generic inquiry, and gives us access to the purchase orders maybe that are late at the moment. So quite often this is a common approach. So we'll take ourselves back to the manufacturing dashboard, and then I wanted to just kind of bring us back to the universal search for a moment. I said things are built around search, and search is really kind of it's a key thing today. One of the things you'll notice with search is we might be looking for a particular menu item on one of those workspace organizations. So we might be looking for, say, an engineering change request. So I can type engineer in the universal search, and then tasks that are located in different areas will all be presented for me as far as that review. So that's helpful. I don't have to learn a menu structure. I can kind of focus on tasks. Now also we add to that search capability the ability to take a look across the application and look at maybe vendor records, other records that have those matching words. So now this becomes very powerful in Acumatica, because I can take myself directly to maybe the vendor record for advanced engineering designs as an example. Also, I certainly have a need to look at help topics from time to time if I'm interested in engineering change control, how I would maybe access that, or procedures I'd use when I'm creating an engineering change request. I have help topics as well. And then finally, just to continue to highlight search, we will see that you have attachments in Acumatica, and it's really fundamental in most systems to be attaching lots of types of documents, maybe they're images, things like that. And so now if I'm looking for a file name, I can see that in the search. So search plays, a very important role in the use of Acumatica. Last thing I wanted to point out here, recently added in last year, was this ability to take a look at your most common recently used tasks. And so that will take a quick inventory of things and give you an ability to look at the things you've done over the last period of time. And that might be more efficient than even searching, because I might be looking for something I was working on. I log in today, I can go back to that pretty quickly. Okay, so that's really just a quick look at the Acumatica interface, the banner toolbar across the top, the workspaces on the left side, and then of course the dashboard components. One of the things I wanted to do would be to focus a little bit on real-time information. And one of those optimizations, frankly, in a lot of mid-sized manufacturing companies is just having integrated financials. Many companies have had for years separate production systems from their financial systems. And so being able to, take and look and drill down into information is not always possible from that manufacturing system as well. Here today, I'll just give you a very quick example. One of the things we oftentimes use is financial reporting to give you a view from the very kind of end point of the organization, the financial results, but have that ability then to drill down through various layers as you might inquire into the business. Now, there is a particular report that I think is a good one of my favorites. It's a rolling profit and loss report, but it just gives you kind of a good example of some of the things you can experience with the reporting in Acumatica. And specifically, this is a presentation of the last 12 months as we're going month to month through the company. And you can make some assessments if you've recorded, maybe various costs and work in process, things like that. In my case, the demonstration here, we're just going to take a simple drill down, because you'll notice that there are hyperlinks in each one of these cells. These hyperlinks will allow me to do some more investigation, so I'm interested in understanding sales revenue. And you'll notice that I had a report pop up another tab, which drills me down a little bit farther. Now, this is a financial look, but it is going to take me down to a level of the source document. So I am now taking myself from the sales level of that current month, taking it down a level and looking at the individual transactions that have been recorded. As an example, with a particular customer, we've been selling them electronic components, and here is a document number. Now, this is the source document, so as we might have taken originally an order from the customer, manufactured those items, invoiced and shipped those items, then we can now take a look at that source document, and we can see the quantities of those drives that were purchased, for example. And more really to the use of Acumatica is just generally how it's organized. So whether you're on an invoice or if you're on a purchase order, you'll always have the ability to, record specific information to that document. So something like a note that might be important, such as if it's a first-time order for somebody. That's a very common thing. We'll also, oftentimes take a look at or establish activities, because one of the things that I think a contemporary system is going to do, and one way you can optimize your system, is to review things and then engage some action around that. So you can add a task and have somebody follow up. In this case, we've got a task I've added already. I'd like to follow up with the supply chain manager. And so these kinds of things, if we've created them, will be assigned to other members of the team. And Acumatica supports a nice approval and to-do list approach to taking a look at tasks, and it's high visibility for everybody in the organization. Go ahead and close that. I wanted to mention files again. So if you have attached files, the users have access to those, and they can get to any of those file attachments as they need it. I'm going to go ahead and clean things up a little bit, but I did want to just kind of give you that perspective of financial statement. Also remember, as we're looking at the organization, if I have a series of departments or divisions in the organization, those financial statements are always organized around this structure as well. I'm going to take us back to our manufacturing dashboard and kind of summarize that and say that was an example of being able to just at any given moment in time look at financials, run financials, and then drill down that information as needed. Now, another area that Art will take us into is some of the information on these key performance indicators. But I thought before he does that, I'd take us into another area that I think is important for organizations to utilize, and that is the mobile devices. You can see that this is run in a browser, and of course it supports all major browsers. So if you have a device that runs any browser, you can certainly run Acumatica as you see it here. But there are also dedicated or native applications. So for Android devices or Apple devices, you have a dedicated application. And I think a lot of organizations overlook how they could use that. And so take just a moment here. And what I'd like to do is just load up our mobile device. So I'm just going to take one moment here. And I'm just using an iPhone, so when we connect here, I'll go ahead and minimize just so we can do kind of a side-by-side presentation. And we'll present the mobile device right here, side-by-side. And then we'll go ahead and log into the mobile device. And again, using an application that's native on the phone allows me to do all of the same kinds of things that I might be interested in doing in the browser or on my desktop. And so once I log in, we'll take a look at some of the tasks, but many of those tasks are just kind of repositioned now for the mobile device in terms of allowing someone to scroll through them and use them. I'm going to take us down through the list of kind of scrollable tasks here. So I'll scroll down to the bottom of the list. But one of the things you can do is you might, for instance, have this manufacturing dashboard environment, and you might want to represent it or see it on the mobile device. And so here's that same approach. You can have that same information delivered. So now you just see it in a mobile-friendly presentation. And just like we can see late purchase orders here and do inquiry, we can identify late purchase orders on our mobile device and get that same information. So side by side, we can take a look, and you're looking at the real-time data there. So again, a good example of something that you can do with the mobile environment. Let's take a look at a couple of other, I'm just backing up in that mobile environment. And one of the things that oftentimes we'll find that makes sense is to look at other types of tasks that would work on a mobile, maybe better than even on a desktop environment. And so I'll scroll up, and specifically I'm going to look for one of the common tasks we use, which is approvals. And so approvals is an area that people might be in a approval work process and have at given times have to review documents or review, in this case, say maybe an engineering change order. So I'm going to use my favorites here to get me back to approvals in the browser. And if I'm in my role in the organization, I might have a kind of an inbound queue of various things that are coming to me that I can investigate, but I can also quickly grab that on the mobile, and I can drill into the details that I have there. So just another type of task. I'll give you just a couple of other ones. Oftentimes what individuals I think will find effective in their roles is being able to have access to other tasks that maybe commonly are used with scanning devices. So this phone, of course, is a scanning device, so I can take an opportunity to maybe look up some information if I were interested in, an item that I've seen on the floor. I have the barcode there, and I can do an item lookup. And so that's kind of a quick task that you can do on the mobile, might not make so much sense on the desktop. Lastly, you can see this scan materials. Here's a manufacturing task. And something like scanning materials will allow me to go ahead and present information. I can maybe be out on the shop floor or the manufacturing floor, and I can highlight, say, a production ticket or something like that. So we can go ahead and, scan various information. So I think in a lot of companies, optimization is going to be also taking advantage of some of the things that you can get from, say, a mobile device. And then finally, just one last example here on our mobile device. I might go to actually business accounts, which is a term in Acumatica that is addressing the types of relationships an organization has. So it might be a customer, might be a vendor, and certainly using some of the natural capabilities such as natural language search. B&R contractors. And so one of the things you can do is take that search and then find that information. And sometimes that's a little bit more effective than using business accounts, typing a search and then finding that same record. And of course, the advantage of a mobile device is I might have a contact there, Alan Bryston. I might want to, initiate something with him, such as an email. So you've got direct connections right there, and then you can initiate with your mobile devices. So one of the things that Acumatica really does well is, giving you an application you can use on a desktop, but then integrating and optimizing it with your remote devices, with mobile devices, and all to kind of support or optimize your organization. Let's take us back to the mobile device, and we'll go all the way back out to the front end here. And ultimately, take a pause there just for a moment. One of the things I want to do is I'll go ahead and pull our mobile off and open up our manufacturing dashboard. And I'd like to take a moment to introduce Art Olson again. Art, of course, spent a lot of time in various manufacturing facilities, electronics manufacturing, things like that. He's going to take us through a couple more of these components when we're looking at a manufacturing KPI and show you how Acumatica can really optimize getting that information. So Art, I'm going to go ahead and pause, and Adrian, if you would transfer the presenter to.
All right, thanks, John. So as John explained, I'm going to take you through the sort of the bottom 2/3 of these topics here. But before I dive into this detail, I sometimes like to stop and think, what are we trying to accomplish from a macro perspective, if you will? So manufacturers, the ones that I've worked in and worked for and consulted with, they typically focus on things like on-time delivery. Of course, you want to make sure your products are being delivered to your customers when they want to receive them, not before, not after. The inventory management is key. You're always limited by space, and the accountants in the world don't want the production people having too many dollars tied up in inventory. So you've got to find that right balance of on-hand inventory to support your production needs and delivery needs, but not so much that you consume too much cash from the balance sheet. Of course, capacity is always an issue. You need to have enough capacity to take on the customer orders at the times they want them. And the accountants in the world, speaking as a former accountant, always want the production people to trim costs if possible out of the production cycle, thereby improving margins or allowing the sales price of the items to be perhaps a little bit lower. So with those like overall objectives in mind, we're going to take a look at the tools in Acumatica that help us support those objectives and allow us to schedule production, deliver products on time to customers, balance your capacity, collaborate with your supply chain, and at times, as a standard practice, or maybe to assist with capacity, is take advantage of outside processing capabilities in Acumatica. So I'm going to switch over to Acumatica. and log in. Now you'll notice that this, John was showing this screen for a while, this manufacturing dashboard. I want to point out one thing that's a bit different than what he was showing you. Up the left side here, John talked about these workspaces, and you'll notice my workspaces are a little different, displayed a little differently than John's were. And I can do that as a user by just choosing to expand the workspace. But I like to have more real estate in the work area. So I use this collapse to main menu option. And that option is selected by user. I've also skinnied down the list of workspaces to the areas that I focus on in the production side. And again, that's all defined at the user level. And if you use multiple devices, perhaps a tablet from home and a desktop at work, these changes, these screen format changes that we're saving here get saved to all of your devices, or get saved so that they're all displayed on your devices the same way. All right, I'm going to start in the upper left here in this tile, and it looks like I've got some late production orders. So that red box easily catches my eye. I'm going to click on that to learn more about which orders are late. And you can see that in this inquiry screen, I've got a tab here called late production orders, and I've got about a dozen that are running late. From here, I can see what is the production order number. Acumatica uses the term production order. Some companies think in terms of manufacturing orders or work orders. It's all the same concept. It's a document that gets created each time you go to manufacture something. So from here, I can see what the production orders are. I can see what I'm manufacturing. I can see which warehouse I'm manufacturing it in. Acumatica allows for multiple warehouses, and it allows for the same end item to have a different bill of material depending upon the warehouse. And so if you've got an East Coast and a West Coast warehouse or production facility, perhaps you've got some different machines in either location. Maybe the costs of the facility are different. So the process and the cost accumulation is different in each location, and that's controlled through a bill of material that is specific to that warehouse for those items. And off here at the far right is the bill of material ID that identifies in Acumatica what the configuration of this item is. We're going to also see when we plan to start this and when we plan to complete it. Of course, these are all past due. We can see what our quantity left to produce is and any remaining quantities. So it gives us a good overview of the activity. From here, I can also drill into an order, and that takes me into the production order maintenance screen, which we'll come in, we'll get into in a little more detail in a few minutes. So I'll go back to my inquiry. And next, I'm going to return to my dashboard, and I'm going to look at my labor cost. So I'll click on that tile, and that opens another inquiry. And you have probably noticed that we've enabled conditional formatting. So I have my production orders listed here, and I've in this grid, I've got planned material and actual material and any variances. Similarly, I've got labor actuals and planned and machine time. And I've set I've configured the grid to highlight the things that are unfavorable variances in the labor category. So for example, this labor variance, I can drill into this, and that will open my production order. Let's go here. Open my production order. And one of the nice things about Acumatica is besides configuring, telling the system what I'm going to make and when, it also tracks the activity that's occurred on the order. So you can see in the list here, I've created and released the order. Then I issued some materials, I incurred some labor and some additional overhead costs. All of those are tracked in these batch numbers, and if I drill into an individual batch number, that'll tell me what makes up that labor number. And then I've also got the view in total, what are my planned costs, what are my actual costs, and what are my variances. So I can pretty quickly see what from a top down, where am I experiencing some labor cost issues, and I can drill into the underlying transactions to see which warehouse, which work center, ultimately which person or persons were involved in accumulating the labor costs that we are now seeing at the top level. Next, I'm going to go take a look at late production orders with sales orders. So if I drill into this tile, this shows me sales orders that are associated with production orders. So Acumatica has make to stock capability. It's got configure to order capabilities. So if you build laptops, for instance, there's lots of different variations. The configuration tool allows you to choose the memory size, the hard disk or SSD size, the screen resolution, and so on, all in an interface that a sales order entry sort of person is able to work through, and then trigger a production order to have that made by the system. If I look at this order, now this is a make to stock order. So if I come into the sales order, sorry, I meant to do this differently. I'm going to use that search capability that John showed. And I put in a portion of this sales order, so I'm going to drill into that sales order. And this will show that we're selling this coffee maker, actually 10 of them, and for some reason we didn't stock them, so we use this feature called Mark for Production. So by triggering this little checkbox, that creates a production order that is now out on the floor ready to make the item for the customer. And from here I can drill into the production order, which we saw a moment ago, and it's cross-referenced back to the sales order as well. So that the user out on the floor perhaps may have a question about the sales order. If they have access rights to view that, or maybe view only, they can go back and see the sales order activity and address whatever question they're trying to address at that point. All right, I'm going to clean things up a little here, and then we'll return to the dashboard. And I'm going to come down here to the bottom right corner through this grid. Now as you can see, these dashboards have different formats for different kinds of tiles and grids. I'm going to drill into this late purchase order panel, and that'll take me to an inquiry. And here are all of the purchase orders I've either created or closed. What that took us to was these open purchase orders, and you can see that the conditional formatting is applied. So this PO out in April is fine. These other two are past due. I'm going to drill into this particular purchase order. And as we work with companies all over the country, suppliers all over the country, or potentially all over the world, communicating with them to make sure that we've clearly indicated what we want them to provide us is key. And we also need to track what interactions have we had with them. And if they're half a world away, we can email back and forth, but it's helpful to have that kind of correspondence associated with the purchase order. So earlier, John was showing you this activities tab. I have a slightly different example here. So I'm going to come up for this purchase order, click on activities, and you can see that I may have had a phone call with the vendor. I could capture some notes related to that call. I can attach documents, drawings, which I'll show you in a minute. But I can also tell that I've emailed this PO to the vendor. So I can see that by clicking here on this link. And when you're creating a PO and printing it in Acumatica, you've got the option to also send it. So we'll help you configure this cover email, if you will, and it just notifies them that they're getting this purchase order. And then attached to the purchase order email is a PDF of the email document you're supplying them. So all of that comes together when you open the PO to print and you send it. Now we've also got the ability all across the system to do what John showed you earlier about attaching files. So I've got a couple of documents sitting here on my desktop, a sample bill of material and some work instructions. And if I want to provide those to the vendor or attach it to the purchase order document itself, I can highlight those two and drag and drop them on the PO. And I now have, or should have, a couple of files attached here. One is an Excel file of the bill of material. Another is some example work instructions that perhaps are associated with the item that we're ordering from the vendor. Or if they're providing some outside services, maybe some specific steps that we want them to take as they're providing services. I'm going to return to the dashboard again. And this time I'm going to look at Work Center capacity. It's this tile right in the middle of the screen. So you can see here that in Work Center 10, I've got 22% of the capacity consumed. If I want to see what production orders are making that up, I can drill through to this Work Center capacity inquiry. And this shows me that about, as the graph showed, about 22% of my capacity has been consumed. And you'll see a series of columns here talking about blocks. Blocks are how Acumatica defines how much time do you schedule with. So is it 15-minute increments, half an hour? So you define that in the system, and then as you plan as the system does the planning, it calculates the number of blocks consumed, and you tell the system what your capacity is in blocks, and it makes that comparison. If I want to see which orders are making that up, I can drill through here to this date on the 28th, and I can see I've got I've got a production order out here in this work center, and I can drill through to that production order to see any additional information I may need to address the question that I'm looking to resolve. And you can also note that we've got, when we provide an attachment or attach a document to a record in Acumatica, this little paper clip turns yellow, so I can drill in and see that I've attached work instructions to this work center as well. All right. Now, in today's world, to allow flexibility and maybe take advantage of some lower cost production options, a lot of companies outsource at least some of their production work, or maybe some of the specialized work that needs to be done. You'd rather outsource it than invest in the individual items or the equipment to manufacture the individual items. So I'm going to navigate to a specific production order. I'm going to come over here to my production order workspace and then go to the production order maintenance screen. And I'm going to look for a specific order, number 26 here. and we're going to explore this production order maintenance screen for a few minutes. So in here, if I were creating this new order, I'd say, okay, what are we going to make? We're going to make this sterilized scalpel. We're going to do it in this warehouse. When we're done, we're going to put it in this location. We can define the quantity we're going to produce. We can schedule it forwards or backwards, have the system calculate the start or end date depending upon the situation. And from here, we can look at the production detail, which is the bill of material that's specific to this order. And we can see the work centers that it goes through, including the operations here, the outside process. We can also look at material shortages, and we'll do that in a critical materials screen. So this is showing me that I'm short this item. If I show all items, I can also trigger a PO to the outside vendor to create the subcontractor services. If I click on purchase here, that'll create a purchase order, then it's tied to this production order. All right. So let me just kind of circle back. Hopefully what we've given you here in this very quick run through is communicate the capability of Acumatica to help people in the production sides focus on key things that they need to address. We take all of the transactional information and transactional data and roll it up into information in the form of KPIs. That helps schedule production orders and get product delivered to customers when they want it, and hopefully improve your collaboration with your vendors across your supply chain. Get machines and cobots and other equipment scheduled along with your staff. The outside processing is quite smooth in Acumatica, and all of this activity then drives financial information back into the system for reporting purposes. So let me pause there.
Once again, thank you, John and Art. You did an excellent job. Really appreciate you showing us Acumatica. And Danielle, thank you for joining us. And the audience, thanks for spending time with us.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
All right,
Thanks,
everybody.
everybody.
Thanks,
Take
everyone.
care. Bye-bye.
Bye.